the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishnadas Kavira Goswami, told in story form by Purna Pragnadas. Yavani Lila, page number 47. At the house of Kolavecha Sridhar, all of the devotees rested for a while, and at that time, Lord Chaitanya drank water from his damaged iron pot. From there, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made Chand Kazi return home, and then he also departed for his own house, dancing all the way. Damaged iron pot of Kolavecha Sridhar. Very nice. One night, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting and dancing at the house of Srivas Thakur, along with Nityananda Prabhu and the other devotees, one of Srivas' sons, who had been suffering from some disease, died. Srivas Thakur was so patient, however, that he did not allow anyone to disturb the kirtan by expressing their sorrow or by crying. But Lord Chaitanya could understand what had happened, and when the kirtan finally ended, he declared, "There must have been some calamity in this house." Then, when the Lord was informed about the death of Shiva's son, he expressed his regret by saying, "Why wasn't this news given to me before?" Lord Chaitanya immediately went to where the dead boy was lying and asked him, "My dear child, why are you leaving the house of Shiva's Thakur?" The dead son replied, "I was living in this house for as long as I was destined to, and now I am going elsewhere according to your direction. I am your eternal servant, a dependent living being, and thus I can only act according to your desire. Beyond this, I have no power to do anything." In this way, all the members of Shiva's Thakura's family received transcendental knowledge and thus gave up their lamentation. Thereafter, when the funeral ceremony for the dead boy was performed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu assured Shivas, "You have lost one son, but Nityananda Prabhu and I are your eternal sons, and so we shall never be able to give up your company." One day thereafter, the Lord bestowed his benediction upon all the devotees and gave the remnants of his food to Shiva's Thakura's niece, Narayani, who later on became the mother of Vrindavan Das Thakur. Shiva's Thakur's tailor was a Mohammedan meat-eater, but the Lord very mercifully revealed to him his form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Upon seeing this, the tailor exclaimed, I have seen, and began to ecstatically dance just like a madman. In other words, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, he became a first-class devotee of the Lord. So Mohammedans also can become first-class devotees of the Lord. We just have to try. Once, while absorbed in a particular ecstasy, the Lord asked Shiva's Thakur to deliver his flute. When Shiva's Thakur replied, "Your flute has been stolen away by the gopis," the Lord ecstatically said, "Go on talking, go on talking." Shiva's Thakur then described the transcendently sweet pastimes of Vrindavan that are enacted during the 6 seasons. Upon hearing these descriptions, the Lord felt great and increasing jubilation within his heart. And so he again and again requested, "Speak on, speak on." Shiva's Thakur, sorry, some message. Shiva's Thakur then extensively explained how the gopis had been attracted to the forest of Vrindavan by the vibration of Lord Krishna's flute. And finally, he described the Rasa Leela. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu repeatedly urged him on, and Shivas continued to speak, morning appeared, and so the Lord embraced him and departed. One day thereafter, a drama performance of Krishna's pastimes was enacted in the house of Yogamaya. And while sitting upon a cart, he delivered love of God to all the devotees present. It's been a long time since we did drama. Another day, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finished dancing, the wife of a Brahmana came and caught hold of his lotus feet. However, as the woman took the dust of his lotus feet and again took the dust of his lotus feet again and again, the Lord became unlimitedly unhappy. Just to counteract her sinful reactions, the Lord ran to the banks of the Ganga and jumped in, so that Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur had to catch hold of him and raise him out of the river. Lord Chaitanya spent that night at Vijaya Acharya's house, and then in the morning he returned home with his devotees. One day, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat at home, he became very morose due to separation while absorbed in the ecstasy of the gopis. As he called out the names of the gopis, a Brahmana student happened to come there, and upon seeing the Lord's activity, he was astonished. The student inquired from the Lord, "Why are you chanting the names of the gopis instead of the holy name of Lord Krishna? What kind of pious results do you expect to achieve by such chanting?" And Uddhava had come to Vrindavan to deliver a message to the gopis. They denounced Krishna in various ways as a manifestation of their exuberant love. Similarly, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was absorbed in the mood of the gopis, so that when the foolish student advocated the cause of Krishna, he became very angry. While rebuking Krishna in various ways, Lord Chaitanya took a stick and stood up to strike the student. At this, the student fearfully ran away.
Prabhu, little slow, Prabhu. Sorry for translation, it's difficult.
I'll try. While rebuking Krishna in various ways, Lord Chaitanya took a stick and stood up to strike the student. At this, the student fearfully ran away, and as the Lord proceeded to chase after him, devotees somehow managed to restrain him. While the devotees pacified the Lord and brought him home, the student ran to a place where 1,000 students were assembled studying together. So I don't know if you understood the context, but basically Mahaprabhu was in the mood of the gopis, and they were uh, denouncing Krishna in various ways. Because when Uddhava had come to see the gopis carrying Krishna's message, and the gopis were all like, "What is this Krishna? He's just left us and went. He doesn't care for us. So we love him so much, but he's just gone." And all of these things, they were just, you know, they were rebuking and denouncing him. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in that mood. He was completely absorbed in that mood. And while he's there in that mode, one this boy is coming and saying, "Why are you not chanting Krishna's name? Why are you chanting Gopi's name?" So Mahaprabhu is in the mood of the gopis. He is completely furious. Why is this fellow talking on talking on behalf of Krishna? And he gets so upset. He takes a stick and goes chasing after him. And all the other devotees somehow just catch hold of Mahaprabhu and try to pacify him. And that point in time, this boy again he goes and then he goes to the other students of Mahaprabhu and starts influencing them. When the student described his encounter with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the other students became very angry, so that all together they joined in criticizing the Lord as follows. "Nimai Pandit is single-handedly trying to spoil the entire country. Having no fear of religious principles, he dares to try and strike a caste Brahmana. If he once again performs such an atrocious act, we shall retaliate by striking him back in return. What kind of important person does he think he is that he can chastise us in this way?" So you can see the mentality of the caste Brahmanas at that point in time. They were all self-important smartas, they do not understand the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and that the essence of his teachings. They were just thinking that he's a How dare he try to come and hit a caste Brahmana? Even though Mahaprabhu himself was also he was born in a Brahminical family, still they were talking in such a way, thinking themselves to be superior. By coming to this decision and offensively criticizing the Lord in various ways, the intelligence of the students became spoiled, and thus, in spite of their being learned scholars, their knowledge became covered. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 15.15, Sarva Suchaham Nidhi Sannivishto Matta Smritirjnanam Apohanam Cha Vedesh Sarve Rahameva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Veda Videva Chaham. So he is the one, he is the one who gives knowledge, he is the one who covers, he gives forgetfulness. And by offending the Lord, automatically their intelligence became spoiled and their knowledge became covered. While the degraded students continued to speak of this incident and laughingly criticized him, the omniscient Lord remained at home, thinking about how to rescue them. But see the mentality of Mahaprabhu. He's just thinking, oh, these school children, how can I go and rescue them? You know, he is in the mood of loving father. I think all the children are making so many mistakes. But he still loves us so much, and he says, "Okay, no problem. How can I, get them back? How can I rescue them?" The Lord thought, all of these so-called professors, scientists, and students generally follow the regulative principles of religion, and yet at the same time they are blasphemers and rogues. If I do not induce these people to take up devotional service, then because of their offenses, they will never be able to accept it. Just see his thought process. He wants them to avoid committing offenses. And he's also saying the type of Brahmanas they are. They are just following the so-called religious principles. At the same time, they're blasphemers. So you may be a very learned man with all of your opulence and all that, but if you're a blasphemer and an offender, all of your knowledge, everything will go spoiled for waste, and all of your knowledge will be covered by the Lord. So you may be sitting in your own small bubble thinking, oh, I am such a great boy and laughingly criticizing somebody. But actually, in the end, we will not be able to get that real essence in the end. I have come to deliver all of the fallen souls. But now, just the opposite is occurring. Only if these rogues offer me obeisances will the reactions of their sinful lives become nullified. So they have committed an offense. And the only way that their offense can be nullified is by offering obeisances to the Lord and asking forgiveness. If I induce them to take up the path of devotional service, they will certainly do so. Therefore, I should adopt the sannyas order of life. For then people will automatically offer me the respectful obeisances, and this will give them relief from the resultant reactions of their offenses. You see how merciful he is. He's taking sannyas, not, there are some sannyasis or some people who aspire to become sannyasis for their own advancement. They have the mentality that if I take sannyas, I will progress more in spiritually. Okay, you may progress, but they take an ashram is not being in such and such ashram is not a requirement to progress spiritually. You can be in any ashram and progress in spiritually. But Mahaprabhu, he wants to take sannyas because he's thinking about the other people. He's saying they all will come committing offenses. So if I take sannyas, they will offer obeisances unto me, and by offering obeisances unto me, then they will automatically, the reactions of their offenses and all of that will be nullified, and therefore they can take up for devotional service. Therefore, thereafter, by my grace, devotional service will gradually awaken in their pure hearts. It appears to me that this is the only way that all these rascals can be delivered, and there is no alternative. They are all pure-hearted, but because of all offenses, they become, they were all such nice brahmanas and all that, but because of their offensive and blasphemous nature, their knowledge was covered. After coming to this firm conclusion, the Lord continued to remain at home. And in the meantime, Keshav Bharati, a sannyasi from Katwa in the Burdwan district, arrived at Navadvip. Upon meeting Keshav Bharati, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered him respectful obeisances and then invited him to his house. After feeding the sannyasi sumptuously, Lord Chaitanya submitted the following plea. My dear sir, you are directly Narayan, and thus I request you to be merciful unto me. Please deliver me from material bondage. Keshav Bharati replied, you are the supreme personality of Godhead, and thus I must do whatever you cause me to do, since I am not at all independent. Thereafter, Keshav Bharati returned home. Then, at the end of his 24th year, at the end of the fortnight of the waxing moon in the month of Magh, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left Navadvip. After crossing the Ganga along with Nityananda Prabhu, Chandrasekhar Acharya, and Mukunda Datta, the Lord reached Katwad, where he met Keshava Bharati. By the order of the Lord, Kirtan was performed throughout the day, and then in the evening he shaved off his hair. The next day he took formal initiation as an Ekadanda sannyasi, since Keshava Bharati belonged to the Shankara Sampradaya and thus could not award the Tridanda sannyasi. From that day onward, the Lord's name became Shri Krishna Chaitanya, whereas before he had been known as Nimai Pandit. This is a very condensed version about the Lord, how he took sannyas. But you must, that in Chaitanya Charitamrita, such curly locks of hair, it's just so beautiful. The Lord, he's dancing, he's like an elephant moving, swaying here and there. He's such a beautiful dance he has, such beautiful features, and all these devotees are there, and he's taking sannyas and this, and he's shaving his hair. And these devotees, they just cannot bear this. My Lord, how can the Lord shave his such beautiful hair? They're not able to tolerate that. They're just falling unconscious. They're all crying, and and so much they're crying. They're thinking, "Oh my God, the beautiful features of the Lord." And then sannyas ashram is not a joke, you know. Um, It's if you're taking if you're a sannyasi, you have to live a very austere life. And Mahaprabhu showed by example. He's saying if you take sannyas ashram, you have to sleep on the on the floor without a nice bed and all that. You have to take bath 3 times a day in cold water. You cannot eat very sumptuous, delicious, and tasty items. You have to eat only what is required of you, and so many of these things. And the devotees, they're all wonderful Bengalis. And when they're feeding, I don't know how many of you have had experience in having prasadam in Mayapur and all that, but when you're in the Lord's Dham and they're feeding you, Bengali prasadam is completely out of this world. Such a sumptuous prasadam. They can keep on piling on your plate and keep on eating. Some of you who have come to New Rajapur Jagannath Dham also might have experienced that. If you have not experienced that, it's an open invitation for all of you to come to New Rajapur Dham and also experience that. So they are so used to feeding Mahaprabhu so nicely, and decorating him and all that. And suddenly Mahaprabhu is taking sannyas and he's shaving his hair and so much of austerity, and they're just not able to tolerate this. So, and from that, and this is just a small condensed version. I thought I'll just say a little bit about that. And from that day onwards, Nimai Pandit was to be known as Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Thus ends the Yavana Leela of Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jai. And thus ends also the Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are now going to enter the Madhya Leela of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Madhya Leela, Dr. Mahimata will take over. Hare Krishna. Hmm.
So in Adi Leela, any questions to Chatur?
I just read two pages.
They'll ask you. Chatur. Okay. So back to the nectar. I am very thankful to all the devotees who are showing their lotus faces.
Yeah, after you came, more people are showing their face.
Chatur is complaining.
Yes, it's almost 50%.
Hare Krishna iPhone Mataji.
50% increase in not even 50. 250% increase.
So, so Adi Leela is about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's childhood pastimes, youthhood, and also until he takes sannyas. So Madhya Leela is all about the pastimes that happened when he is taken sannyas. Madhya Leela. After accepting the renounced order of life, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started for Vrindavan out of intense love for Krishna. However, while absorbed in trance, the Lord mistakenly wandered about in the part of Bengal where the Ganga does not flow, called Radha Desha. As he went along, the Lord recited the following words in ecstasy. I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nations by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. This process was approved by the previous Acharya, who were all firmly fixed in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here we can see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is personally instructing us how we can get out of this insurmountable ocean of nations by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. And this process has been followed by the innumerable acharyas who were also firmly fixed in devotion. So they demonstrated how, by being fixed up in devotional service to Krishna, we can get out of this insurmountable ocean. So the whole ocean gets shrunken into a little palmful of water, which can be crossed over by a calf. No, so if a calf makes a footprint, and if there's water accumulates in that footprint where there's a depression, is it possible for us to cross over that, step over that? Yes, it's very easy. So similarly, this whole Santosh Patel, please put him in Hindi group. So this whole material existence gets shrunken into that much place which is occupied by a hoof print of a calf. And just by engaging in the Lord's wonderful devotional service, we can easily get over that, pass over it. Lord Chaitanya accepted that this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by the Brahmana from Avanti Desha, expressed the true meaning of sannyasa. Thus, after accepting the renounced order of life, he decided to go to Vrindavana in order to engage himself fully in the service of Mukunda while staying in a solitary place. While going to Vrindavana, all the transcendental ecstatic symptoms became manifest in the Lord's body, and he had no idea about the direction in which he was going and whether it was day or night. Nityananda Prabhu, Chandrasekhara, and Mukunda accompanied the Lord. And whoever happened to see his ecstasy would exclaim, Hari, Hari! By chanting with the Lord, all such persons found that their unhappiness due to material existence diminished. Actually, we can experience this in the association of Guru Maharaj. You know, we may go with such a heavy heart. We may have so many, distressful things to share with Guru Maharaj. We will think, oh, I have to share this, I have to share that, I have to do this, I have to ask him this, I have to ask him that. But the moment we go in front of him, everything gets erased away, and there's a sort of bliss which we experience. And then in that bliss, we completely forget what we were supposed to ask. And then once we come out of that association, everything comes flooding back. Oh my God, I didn't ask this. Oh my God, I didn't do this. Oh, so like that. See, whoever saw, which by chanting with the Lord, all such persons found that their unhappiness due to material existence diminished. And many of us also, yes, Santosh Patel, I see your hand up. Who is assigning the devotees?
माता जी हिंदी क्लास में डालिए हैं.
हाँ, वही मैं पूछ रही हूँ, कौन असाइन कर रहा है? मंगलम.
Yes, Madhuri.
Please assign her, Mangalam Prabhu.
I have done it, Madhuri. She has to accept the request. I'll just try it again, Madhuri.
वो आपको भेज रहा है माता जी, आप उसको ज्वाइन करना है, आप ज्वाइन करना है, आपको क्लिक करना है. हाँ, she went. जय हरि बोल. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw that many cowherd boys had joined him and were loudly shouting, Hari, Hari, he became very pleased. While putting his hand on their heads, the Lord requested them, go on chanting like this, and blessed them by saying that they were all very fortunate. Indeed, the Lord felt himself to be very successful because they had chanted the holy name of the Lord. Jai. See how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us how to preach. Each and every action of his. So when they chanted, then he's appreciating them, he's encouraging them. Go on, very good. And then once they do that, he feels that he has whatever mission he had come for, that's successful. So like that, as much as possible, whenever possible, we have to preach. Whenever we get the opportunity, we should not let go of the opportunity. We have to keep looking for opportunities. Nityananda Prabhu then called all the boys in confidence. After telling them some reasonable story, he instructed the boys as follows. If Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks you about the way to Vrindavana, please point out to him the path on the bank of the Ganga instead. So Nityananda Prabhu had different ideas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to go to Vrindavan, but Nityananda Prabhu had different ideas. Thus, when the cowherd boys were questioned by Lord Chaitanya, they led him to the path alongside of the Ganga, and so he proceeded that way in ecstasy. Then Nityananda Prabhu requested Acharya Ratna, please go quickly to the house of Advaita Acharya. When I take Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the banks of the Ganga at Shantipura, Advaita Acharya should await there with a boat. And then, as I accompany the Lord to his house, you should go to Navadvipa in order to call for Mother Sachi and the rest of the devotees. So Nityananda Prabhu understands that Advaita Acharya and the rest of the residents of Navadvipa, especially Mother Sachi, were drowning in an ocean of misery. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, without even informing them, he left Navadvip and went to Katwa to take sannyas from Keshava Bharati. So Nityananda Prabhu understood how much Mother Sachi was missing her son and how much she was suffering in separation of Krishna, separation of Mahaprabhu. So he wanted to pacify her distress. So he had different plans, because if Mahaprabhu goes to Vrindavana, then Sachimata will never get an opportunity to see him, and then she will die in separation, just like how his parents had died in separation. He did not want the same thing to happen to Sachimata. So he had different plans. After sending off Chandrasekhara, Nityananda came before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was absorbed in ecstasy. And the Lord inquired, where are you going? Nityananda replied, I am going with you to Vrindavana. And then when Chaitanya asked, how far is it to Vrindavana? Nityananda said, just see, here's the river Yamuna. Because Mahaprabhu was in ecstasy, he didn't know where he was. So he took the Ganga to be the Yamuna. After saying this, Nityananda led Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu near the Ganga, and in ecstasy, the Lord accepted his word, saying, "Oh, what good fortune! Now I have seen the river Yamuna." While thinking in this way, Lord Chaitanya offered the following prayer: "Oh, river Yamuna, you are the blissful spiritual water that gives love to the son of Nanda Maharaja. You are the same as the water of the spiritual world, for you can vanquish all of our sinful reactions and offenses. Oh, daughter of the sun, God, kindly purify us by your pious activities." After reciting this mantra, the Lord offered his obeisances and then took his bath in the Ganga, wearing only a single piece of cloth as underwear. So he was just wearing a kopin. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was standing in the water, Advaita Acharya arrived on a boat, bringing with him new underwear and external garments. And Lord Chaitanya saw Advaita Acharya standing before him, offering obeisances. He began to wonder about the entire situation. Still due to his ecstasy, he inquired, "Why did you come here? How did you know that I was in Vrindavana?" So he was thinking that Advaita Acharya has come to Vrindavana. At this time, Advaita Acharya disclosed the real situation by saying, "My dear Lord, wherever you are, that is Vrindavana. Now it is my great fortune that you have come here to the Ganga." So, from this we can understand that wherever the saintly devotees go, they carry the dham in their hearts. And so wherever they are, the dham also comes along with them. So be it Mayapur, be it Vrindavan, be it Jagannath Puri, be it Dwaraka, be it Mathura, no, they carry all the dhams in their heart. So when the saintly people come, it is foolish for us to say, "Oh, I'm going to the dham." When the dham is coming to us, for us to serve the dham, it is foolishness to say that I'm going to the dham to serve. What can we serve in the dham? So it's very, very auspicious. Then it dawns on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like how Nityananda has actually cheated him. When the Lord accused Nityananda in this way, Advaita Acharya responded, "Whatever Nityananda Prabhu has told you is not false. For you have indeed just bathed in the river Yamuna. At Prayag, the Ganga and the Yamuna meet, and it is considered that the Yamuna continues to flow on the western side, whereas the Ganga flows on the eastern side. Now, since you have bathed in the river Yamuna, you should change your cloth. And because you have been fasting for 3 days while absorbed in ecstasy of love of Krishna, I hereby invite you to my house where you can accept alms. I have just cooked 1 palmful of rice as well as a little liquid vegetable and spinach. So please come with me to my residence." So now we will see what is 1 palmful of rice and a little liquid vegetable and spinach. We will see when we attend the feast, which is offered by Advaita Acharya. So he is inviting all of us also. So we are also going to Advaita Acharya's house. After Mahaprabhu partakes in the feast and after all the devotees partake in the feast, we can also partake in the Maha Prasadam. After saying this, Advaita Acharya placed the Lord in the boat and then brought him to his house at Shantipura. There, Advaita Acharya washed the lotus feet of the Lord, and as a consequence, he felt great happiness within, because this was his yearning from the day he started praying to Lord Chaitanya to descend on the earth. He was always praying that he be the servant of the Lord and he washed the lotus feet, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never gave him that opportunity. Because he always considered him to be elder to him. But now, after Mahaprabhu took sannyas, when a person takes sannyas, he actually transcends all the varnas and ashramas. And so Advaita Acharya felt so happy. Afterward, Advaita Acharya offered all of the food that had been prepared by his wife, dividing him into 3 equal parts. One portion was arranged on a metal plate for offering to Lord Krishna, while the other two were put on plantain leaves, which were not cut in half and had come from the tree that had held at least 32 bunches of bananas. Wow! In one banana tree, banana plant, there were 32 bunches of bananas. So just imagine how huge that plant must have been and how huge the leaves must have been, the banana leaves. 32 bunches. Now hardly you get one bunch in one tree. On each leaf, there was a stack of fine rice with cow's ghee in the middle. So this is the palmful of rice, which Advaita Acharya is talking about. Surrounding the stack of rice were pots made from bark of banana leaves, which were filled with varieties of vegetables. That is the donna. So all the donna was also from the banana leaves. And moong dal, including 5 kinds of shukta. There was newly grown neem leaves fried with eggplant. Wow. And the sabjis prepared with dal badis. The preparation made with coconut pulp mixed with channa, that is cheese, and rock candy was very sweet. And there was also a curry made from banana flowers and squash boiled in milk. Yeah, these banana flowers, when devotees make, no, they have to be very careful, because now for the past few times when they made banana flowers in the temple, it was so bitter, so bitter. So please, anybody planning to make banana leaves for the Lord, just take one flower, then just taste it. Then you may ask, oh, how can we do without offering? No, but then it's very important. You just taste it, don't eat it. Just taste it. If it is bitter, then the whole flower will be bitter. And then throw it. Don't swallow it. Then throw it. Then if it is bitter, then the whole flower is bitter. Then if it is not bitter, the whole flower is nice. So it's very important that you please see whether it is bitter or not, because after giving the Lord, it is bitter. And then when that is served to us, the Lord has eaten it. And it becomes so difficult for the devotees to eat it because it is so bitter. It is more like, it's very, very bitter. So please, next time when devotees make banana flower for Jagannath, please take note of this. There were also numerous varieties of sweets, condensed milk preparations, and every kind of cake desirable. Everything was made in sufficient quantity so that everyone could take prasada. And there were so many varieties that 100 pots surrounded each plate. So if 100 pots surrounded each plate, just imagine what is the size of the plate and the size of the room in which they are sitting. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, both of them are sitting. So then there are 200 pots, because they are sitting side by side. So such a big plate, banana leaf, and then 100 pots, and not pots like what we have, like small like that, huge pots. And then rice. In addition, apart from these 100 pots, in addition, there were pots of kheer, highly condensed milk, and varieties of preparation that had been made with flat rice. Indeed, it is not possible to describe all the preparations that were made. Tulsi manjaris were placed upon the stack of rice and all the vegetables, and there was also big pots filled with scented rose water. When Lord Krishna was offered all of these foods, he certainly enjoyed them very pleasantly. After offering, Advaita Acharya asked the two brothers, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, to see the Bhoga Arati. And thereafter, the deities in the temple were invited to rest. Advaita Acharya then requested, my dear lords, kindly enter this room. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu thus went to take prasada, and they called Mukunda and Haridasa to join them. However, as the two devotees stood with folded hands, Mukunda responded, I have something to do that is not yet finished, and so I shall accept prasad later on. They didn't want to eat along with the Supreme Lord. They wanted to serve him, but he's telling, come and eat along with me. So see how nicely he's giving excuse. No, I have some unfinished business. So I have to finish that and then only I can eat. Haridas then said, I am the most sinful and lowest among men. Later on, I shall eat one palmful of rice while waiting outside. So this is the humility of Haridas. Of course, we cannot imitate that. Advaita Acharya took Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda inside the room. Upon seeing the arrangement of prasada, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so pleased that he declared, frankly, I will personally take the lotus feet of anyone who can offer Krishna such nice food and place them on my head birth after birth. So he's very pleased that Advaita Acharya has offered such opulent prasadam or bhoga to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he's very pleased. And now he wants to say, because Advaita Acharya washed his feet, now he's saying, whoever offered this, I want to keep their feet on my head birth after birth. You can just see what's the transcendental competition between the two lords. When he saw that there were 3 divisions of prasada, the Lord assumed they were all meant for Krishna. And so he did not actually understand Advaita Acharya's intention. The Lord then said, let us sit down and take some prasada. And Advaita Acharya replied, I shall distribute. Thinking that all the 3 divisions were meant for distribution, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked for another 2 banana leaves, saying, give us just a little quantity of vegetable and rice. Advaita Acharya said, please sit down on these cloth sitting places. And while catching hold of the 2 lords' hands, he seated them. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu objected, it is not proper for a sannyasi to eat such variety of food. For if he does, how will he be able to control his senses? I mean, just look how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching by example. When the Lord refused to eat prasada that had already been served, Advaita Acharya said, please give up your concealment. I know what you are, and I know the confidential meaning of your acceptance of sannyasa. Now give up your word jugglery and kindly eat the prasada that has been offered to you. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu insisted that he could not eat so much, Advaita Acharya replied, please accept this prasada without pretense. And if you cannot eat it all, then the balance can be left on your plate. So he's saying, okay, if you can't eat everything, no problem. You eat how much ever you can, and the rest you leave it. Still the Lord objected, saying, I will not be able to eat so much. And it is not the duty of a person, sannyasi, to leave any remnants. So he didn't want to leave remnants also. He didn't want so much also. Advaita Acharya then pointed out, he has a very good point now. At Jagannath Puri, you ate 54 times a day. And each offering consists of hundreds of pots of food. Since the amount of food which 3 people can eat is hardly a morsel for you, all these 3 eatables constitute not even 5 morsels. By great fortune, you have come to my house, so please begin eating and do not talk any longer. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has nothing to say, because in Jagannath Puri, he is eating 56 times, 54 times. After saying this, Advaita Acharya supplied water to the lords for washing their hands. Then they smilingly sat down to eat. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered the quantity of prasada to be enormous, Nityananda Prabhu thought it was hardly a morsel. Just see the contrast. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, oh, it is too much. And Nityananda Prabhu is saying, what have you served? Is this the way you treat your guest? Therefore, he declared, I have not eaten anything for 3 days. And so today I was hoping to break my fast. And yet, although I have been invited here by Advaita Acharya, I see that today is also a fast day. Even though he is offered so much, he is saying it's a fast day. Since the quantity of food is so small that it will not fill up half of my belly. So now he wants to tell Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, okay, it's okay. It's not much, because otherwise Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will not eat. At this, Advaita Acharya replied, my dear sir, you are a mendicant traveling on pilgrimage, and thus sometimes you eat fruit and roots, and sometimes you have to fast. I am a poor Brahmana, and you have come to my house. Therefore, please be satisfied with whatever little food you have received, and give up your greedy mentality. So we can see that there's a very nice friendly exchange between the 2 of them. Of course, if somebody outside, if they hear, if we don't understand it through the parampara, then we will think, my God, what is this kind of exchanges between them? How it's possible. But then they understand that when they are speaking like that, they're having another meaning, which maybe we don't understand. Nityananda Prabhu then said, whatever I may be, okay, I may be mendicant or whatever I may be, you have invited me, and thus it is your duty to supply me with as much food as I want to eat. So now there's a transcendental competition. Taking advantage of this joking exchange, Advaita Acharya said, "You are a reject Paramahamsa who has accepted the renounced order of life just to fill up your belly. I can understand that your only business is to give trouble to Brahmanas. You can eat more than 40 kilos of rice. But I'm a poor Brahmana. How can I get so much rice? Whatever I have given you, even though it may be just a palmful of rice, please eat and then get up and do not display your madness by strewing your remnants here and there." While joking with Advaita Acharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu ate. After finishing half of each vegetable preparation, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left it aside and then went on to the next. However, as soon as the two lords ate half of the preparation, Advaita Acharya would immediately come and fill up their bowl while requesting them to eat more. So immediately he'll fill. Saying, "Oh, you didn't eat only, see, it's full, still it is full, nothing you have eaten." When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pleaded, "How much more I can go eating?" Advaita Acharya replied, "Please do not leave anything that I have already given. Whatever I serve from now on, just eat half and leave the rest." Thus, by submitting various humble requests, Advaita Acharya made Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu eat. And in this way, his desire became fulfilled by their mercy. Nityananda Prabhu then jokingly said, "My belly is not yet filled. Please take away your food, for I have not eaten the least of it." After seeing Nityananda Prabhu took a handful of rice and threw it on the floor in front of him as if in an angry mood. When 2 or 4 pieces of rice struck to his body, Advaita Acharya considered himself to be purified by the touch of Nityananda's remnants. And so he began dancing with great joy. Advaita Acharya then jokingly said, "So if somebody had done that, just see how we have served them. Then they are throwing the food, that's the immediate reaction. But here we see Advaita Acharya is dancing in ecstasy. My dear Nityananda, I have invited you and now I have received the results. You have no fixed caste and by nature you're a madman. In order to make me a madman like yourself, you have thrown your remnants at me without even fearing that I'm a Brahmana." So when he's saying you're a madman, so he is saying that you are mad, intoxicated with love of Krishna. And your intention of throwing this rice at me is to make me also madly intoxicated with love of Krishna. Just see what is this wonderful exchange. Even though you know that I'm a Brahmana. So because a Brahmana has great pride that he's a Brahmana. So in order to break his pride, Advaita Acharya is telling him, of course, Advaita Acharya is not proud because he's the Supreme Lord himself, but still, in order to instruct us, he's saying, see, you're throwing it just to make me mad like you, mad with Krishna Prema. You're mad with Krishna Prema and you want me to become mad with Krishna Prema. Advaita Acharya humbly thought of himself as one of the smarta Brahmanas, whereas he considered Nityananda Prabhu to be a transcendental platform of pure devotional service. For this reason, he felt that by the touch of Nityananda Prabhu's remnants, he had become purified of all smarta contamination and elevated to the Paramahamsa platform. So this is very, very instructive and very relevant, because how Advaita Acharya is teaching us that how Vaishnavism is higher than being a Smarta Brahmana. Smarta Brahmana means just being attached to the rituals and not understanding the real purpose of it. But at the same time, we need to follow certain etiquettes and certain rules and regulations when we are serving the Supreme Lord. We cannot say, oh, it is Smarta. No, it is not like that. Because it is required. Cleanliness is very much important. Nityananda Prabhu said, these are the remnants of food left by Lord Krishna. And so if you consider them to be ordinary leftovers, then you have committed a great offense. Only if you invite at least 100 sannyasis to your home and feed them sumptuously will your offense be nullified. Advaita Acharya replied, I shall never again invite another sannyasi, for it is a sannyasi who has spoiled all of my Brahminical Smriti regulative principles. So that means, he does not care. Nityananda is testing him, whether he wants to invite more smarta sannyasis. So here he's saying, no, I already received the results. Nityananda coming there, he has already received the result. And what is the result? The result is love of Krishna. So he don't want to. So he's just happy with that. Advaita Acharya. Thereafter, Advaita Acharya had the two lords wash their hands and mouths. Then he took them to a nice bed and made them lie down to rest. Advaita Acharya gave Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu some cloves and cardamom mixed with tulasi leaves. He smeared their bodies with sandalwood paste and placed flower garlands around their necks. Then, when he started massaging Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's legs, the Lord became very hesitant and said, "My dear Advaita Acharya, you have made me dance in various ways. And so now please give up this practice. Go and take your lunch along with Mukunda and Haridasa." In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that it is not befitting for a sannyasi to accept nice beds, have his body smeared with sandalwood paste, and have legs massaged by a pure Vaishnava. Advaita Acharya then took prasad along with Mukunda and Haridasa, and they wholeheartedly ate as much as they desired. When the people of Shantipura heard about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's arrival, they immediately came to see his lotus feet. Upon seeing the Lord's beauty, everyone became struck with wonder, and with great pleasure they shouted, "Hari, Hari!" Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body had a very fair complexion, and its bright luster, which conquered the brilliance of the sun, combined with the beauty of his glittering saffron garments. Throughout the day, people came and went with great pleasure, and thus by the end of the day, there was no counting how many had assembled there. In the evening, Advaita Acharya began Sankirtana, and he personally danced. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu watched the performance with great pleasure. As Nityananda and Haridasa joined in the dancing behind him, Advaita Acharya said, "My dear friends, what can I say? Today I have received the highest transcendental pleasure after many, many days. Lord Krishna is in my house." So this is what happens when we are in the association of devotees, and then we have together, we have festivals, we have nice kirtan, we have prasadam together, we have reading of Shastra together. The result is pure transcendental ecstasy and nothing else. This was a song composed by Vidyapati and was supposed to be sung by Srimati Radharani upon Krishna's return from Mathura. While leading the Kirtan, Advaita Acharya sang this verse, and as he did so, he manifested symptoms of ecstasy such as perspiration, shivering, standing of the hair on end, tears, and thundering of the voice. While dancing, Advaita Acharya would sometimes turn around and round and then catch hold of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. At such times, Advaita Acharya would say, "For many days you escaped me by bluffing, but now, since I have got you in my home, I will keep you bound up." So, this is how, we have to be. When he's saying that, the house is in the heart, is our heart. So we have to capture the Lord and keep him bound up in our hearts. Advaita Acharya performed Kirtana for 3 hours that night. And as he danced, Lord Chaitanya felt ecstatic love for Krishna and separation. Then as the waves of love increased, the Lord became highly agitated by the ecstasy and suddenly fell to the ground. Upon seeing this, Advaita Acharya stopped dancing, and Mukunda, understanding the Lord's feelings, began to sing many verses that augmented his ecstasy. Although Advaita Acharya lifted up Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to help him to dance, after hearing Mukunda's songs, the Lord could not do so because of the manifestation of great ecstasy. Tears fell from his eyes and his entire body trembled. His hair stood on end, he perspired heavily, and his voice faltered. Sometimes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood up, sometimes he fell down again, and sometimes he simply sat and cried. So I think we'll stop here. Okay, I will, okay, one more page and then we'll stop. Mukunda then sang a song about meeting of Krishna in order to pacify the Lord's feeling of separation. My dear intimate friend, what has not happened to me? Due to the effects of poison of love for Krishna, my body and mind have become severely afflicted because my mind burns day and night. I cannot get any rest. If there were some place that I could go and meet Krishna, then I would immediately fly there. So this is the song which Srimati Radharani is singing. This song was sung by Mukunda in such a sweet voice that as soon as the Lord heard it, his mind went to pieces of all the transcendental ecstatic symptoms such as disappointment, moroseness, pleasure, restlessness, pride, and humility began to fight each other like soldiers. Due to the onslaught of these ecstatic symptoms, the Lord's entire body began to totter, and then he suddenly fell to the ground, his breathing having almost stopped. Upon seeing this, all the devotees became anxious, but suddenly the Lord got up while making a thundering sound, while saying, "Go on speaking, go on speaking." The Lord then began to dance with great pleasure, and Lord Nityananda walked behind him just in case he might fall down again. Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakura followed them dancing, and in this way Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued for at least 3 hours, manifesting various of ecstatic emotions. For 3 days the Lord had been fasting, and after that he had eaten sumptuously. Thus, as he danced and jumped high, he became a little tired. Being fully absorbed in love of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not understand his fatigue, however, and so Nityananda finally caught hold of him and made him stop. Advaita Acharya suspended the kirtan, and then, while rendering various kinds of services, he had the Lord lay down to rest. For 10 continuous days, Advaita Acharya held feasting during the day and Sankirtana at night without any change. For 10 days, there were huge feasts every day. Every day. So we all attended all the 10 days feast, and after everyone had prasadam, we also had prasadam. Jai, Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Yes, anybody has any thoughts? Everybody is still savoring the prasadam. I don't want to disturb your mood.
What's the page for Islam?
61. Then I have to start from here. Silence. Sweet silence. Yes, the same Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
What?
Mataji. No, I was not able to unmute. That's why. Then I think somebody helped me. Shachi Mata was not there this time. It's 10 days.
Mataji, be patient. We wait. Yes, Sunita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took Ekadanda Sannyasa from Shankaracharya follower?
Because in those days it was if anybody had to, the sannyasi had to be taken seriously. His purpose was to distribute Mahamantra, and so if his sannyasi is not taken seriously, it does not make sense for his purpose. And also he wanted to prove, because as a Supreme Lord, nothing binds him. He's beyond all that.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, then we will take leave. We will meet tomorrow. The next exciting association with Lord Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha vasindubhyo cha pratanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Nitai Gaur Siddhanath Premanande. Sorry you lost your time. Whoever wanted to ask question, we will take it up tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare